Good evening and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where tonight we're looking ahead to Friday's Fife derby against Dunfermline. Now, while Dunfermline has taken the spoils at East End Park on both occasions this season, Rovers are going to be hopeful of a double whammy of a home win and adding a bit more pressure onto Michael Titzer. I am your host, Robbie Weir, and as ever, delighted to be joined by, firstly, Scott Fleming. How are you getting on, Scott?
Yeah, all good, mate. Just it was weird. Obviously, one of them weekends that you get in the season where we didn't have a game. Obviously, with it being Scottish Cup weekend and whatever, and we obviously played our game against Livy that was meant to be played during the week. But no, I think we said it in the last podcast. It was good for the players to get a break as well. So no, looking forward to the game on Friday.
Yeah, an anonymous member of our podcast was plumbing the depths of, by the point that they reached Monday, they said it's a really, really, truly harrowing experience when you're looking forward to a St Johnstone or against Livingston match, I believe it was, or trying to seek out information about it. Also joined by Carol Smith. How you doing, Carol?
I'm doing grand. On Monday night I sought out Espanyol versus Girona, which was interesting. I forgot how soft La Liga football is. You thought Scottish players go down easy? Wow. Some of them were Oscar-winning performances. But it was a good game.
And then, of course, we've got the man with the double-barrelled surname to lead us into the team of the double-barrelled surnames. We've got Allan Douglas. How you doing, Allan?
I'm good, yeah. I'm going to have to do some vocal warm-ups and stuff to actually get myself ready for reading that team out on Friday. I might have to start early. The BBC will have to delay the broadcast or something like that so I can fit it all in.
Yeah, just the team line should be pretty sensational, shall we say. So yeah, we'll start from a Rovers point of view. Earlier today, so we're recording this on the Wednesday for this one, just give us a bit more airtime prior to the game, which is of course on Friday. Scotland under-21s, a somewhat unexpected, shall we say, announcement with Finlay Pollock getting the call-up. Obviously, he's on loan from Hearts to ourselves. Just to start with yourself, Scott, what did you make of that? Deserved based on it as sort of recent performances that we've seen over the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised, obviously, but I think going by his recent performances, you can't really say that he's not deserving of it. He's scored some goals. He probably should have scored a few more, but he's been playing well and he's been playing consistently as well. So I think, especially under Barry Robson, he's kind of turned the corner a wee bit. But I think the under-21s is always a bit a weird one because you're always, for me anyway, I don't pay attention to a lot of their games when they're on. I'll have a look at the squads and see who's in them to see potential future national team players, and it's good to see you hear of guys in certain setups down south or in random countries around the world and where they're on loan to certain teams and whatever, and then you just randomly see a few guys that are at East Fife or Celtic Hearts that are playing with teams for Man City and everything. But so it's a bit different that we've got a player that's in that sort of thing. Obviously, it was always good to see Kieran Bowie after he left us whilst he was at Fulham and stuff, getting under-21 call-ups. Hopefully, if he keeps his performances up, he'll not be too far away from a potential national team call-up, because we obviously just seen yesterday that the young lad at Hearts, is it James Wilson, got called up. So I don't think Bowie can be too far behind if and that lad's been playing well as well this season, but Bowie's also, since his injury, he's been playing really well for Hibs. But for Pollock, I'm glad that he's getting the recognition that he's playing well now.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he gets treated a bit better than Bowie did by Scott Gemmell, who insisted on playing him when he was injured, which resulted in the sort of long-term hamstring injury that he had, based on sort of what I've read. Yeah, Allan, just for yourself, do you think that maybe gives us a bit of a sort of future-facing headache, shall we say, given that he's going to be missing out on a couple of games going ahead?
It does, yeah. I mean, obviously, he'll now be unavailable for the games away at Thistle and Morton, which, considering how much he's been playing recently, is a bit of a blow. And I suppose you could say it's at least it's coinciding with the return of Lewis Vaughan. If we'd had him still out injured and we were then losing Pollock, we'd have been really short. You've got Aidan Marsh there, but for some reason or another, Barry Robson just doesn't seem to fancy him. So yeah, as at least we've got Vaughan back. The call-up's an interesting. The under 21s is an interesting squad because realistically, it's about trying to kind of get guys playing together who are going to make up for, who've got a chance of moving up to the national squad. But the kind of way it's going just now is so many of our young players are going down south really early and going into their academy setup. So they're not really playing a lot of first team football anymore. So you find that anyone up here who is playing first team football regularly is going to get, and doing well, is going to get a call up. Are they likely to go on and progress to the full setup? I don't know. But it's an interesting one. And then the other kind of point I was going to make actually is about James Wilson, the Hearts player. I have a funny feeling that one of the major factors in us calling him up now is just to make sure Northern Ireland didn't come and pinch him, because he's played for Northern Ireland at youth level. And Stephen Craigan actually mentioned on the radio a couple of weeks ago about how he was still hoping he was going to play for Northern Ireland instead. So I do wonder if that's been a wee factor in there, to making sure he pledges his future to Scotland.
Yeah, I feel like, we're going a bit off topic, so apologies to anyone who doesn't care. I text Rover sitting there like, why are they talking about this? Like, I don't really care about Scotland's international setup. But yeah, I feel like with it, it's an intriguing one because over the last few years, you've seen a lot of quality players go through it. The likes of Ben Doak and now Lennon Miller, sort of obviously he's got his first call up into the sort of Scotland national team. So there is a sort of pathway there. I know that I think Brexit's just been a real game changer in terms of clubs down south. They can obviously get work permits for things, but I think lower down the food chain it's easier for particularly with the way that scouting is now. There's so much access to information and data for Scottish clubs with stuff like Y-Scout being able to watch full games and track players over a longer term. And I do suspect that's why quite a lot of clubs just go so heavily into youth, just selling players with the hope that they'll be the next big thing, and that if you add on a huge add-on onto them, you can see why clubs use that as a sort of strategy, and how successful it can vary from club to club. But yeah, anyway.
I do wonder if Ryan Oney now being in the under-21 setup maybe triggers another payment to Hamilton. That might be another 2 or 3 players incoming over there.
Yeah, there's that, and then on top of that, you've got Partick Thistle. They've got a young lad that was linked to, I think it might, I'm not sure whether it was Fulham or whether it was someone else, but they've got a player that's certainly been linked to I think he's only like 16 or 17, but he's been connected to clubs down south. So yeah, you can see the strategy as to why clubs are so intent on trying to progress with it, but how successful it actually is, again, it varies from club to club. Right, yeah, let's look ahead to Friday and a bit of a focus. Carol, I just want to catch up with you firstly. I believe that the last time that you were on, sort of mid-February, what have your thoughts been about the recent results that Rovers have had and just where we're at? Because again, it's been that sort of stop-start sort of situation that we've seen over the last 3 games. We've not managed to get any on the score sheet at all. But yeah, what have you made of recent performances from your vantage point in Barcelona?
It just, not to be a bit down, but it just feels like we're constantly going, we're waiting for our season to start, but we're 9 games away from the end of the season. So our season's well and truly started, and we need to get some momentum, and that's just what's missing. There's no momentum. You just think it's getting started, you get a little bit excited, and then something smacks you in the face and reminds you of reality. Yeah,
I think that's a fair comment. That's, again, we've sort of shared it across the numerous podcasts that we've done, sort of pre and post match games, across all season really. I think you're completely right in saying that, and there is a degree of frustration there, because I feel like, particularly after last season, I know that we've spoken a lot about the accounts, but it does make you hark back to last season. Particularly, even within group chats, you'll see videos getting shared, like Ian Latwell, for instance, earlier on shared a video of the celebrations after Ian Murray's header when we won away at Firhill. And it's just looking back to moments like that.
You and Murray.
Aye, you and Murray even. Aye, of course. That's the second time I've butchered a manager, butchered a name on a podcast. So if Duncan Cameron can come back and take the hosting duties away from me, then I'm sure everyone will be grateful. But the point was that with Ewan Murray's header at Firhill, just the celebrations after and the feeling that it was just something that might potentially mean something. It was a big step in terms of securing second place, given that it put a real sort of measure of distance between ourselves and Partick Thistle. Really, basically, put a stamp down and said, "There's not a chance that you're going to catch us. It's just us and United now." Speaking of that, Thistle obviously won last night, Allan, 2-0 at Hampden against Queen's Park. Do you think we're really into the last chance saloon now with that result of any sort of faint hope of fourth place?
I think, without wanting to jump a week ahead to what will be getting discussed on a pre-match podcast probably next Wednesday, that's now into must-win territory, I think. Thistle away next week. Obviously, we can't overlook Dunfermline on Friday. We need to focus on. To be fair, it doesn't matter at all whether we're focused on it or not, as long as the players are, which I have no doubt they will be. But that Thistle game is now massive next week. Obviously, I mean, if we win on Friday and they get beaten Saturday, then it kind of closes the gap again. But that Thistle game, which leads into a really tough week, you're away at Thistle on the Friday, Morton on the Tuesday, and then Hamilton on the Saturday. It's a big week. That's pretty much make or break the season for us, which seems a bit daft to say when, of course a week like that's going to be make or break when you've got like 8-9 games left. So it's just been a weird season, isn't it? I mean, it feels like it's absolutely dragged by in some ways, and in other ways it's completely flown by. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, it's there's been some real high moments littered in, particularly the two of the games against Falkirk. The sort of ending their unbeaten run, and then you look in terms of that Scottish Cup game away to them as well. So you factor those in. We've obviously won the first derby against Dunfermline at Starks Park earlier on this season, but then we've won obviously the two away games last season on top of the Scottish Cup derby. And then you've had rare moments where it's sort of shone, but it's very hard to pinpoint particular moments where you're thinking, right, this is definitely an opportunity to kick on and move forward or sort of have that same level as last season. So I think there's obviously been that dip, and I think it is fair that fans are maybe really struggling to find the same level of enthusiasm. But again, it only takes a few weeks for the picture to completely change, which is it's very important to remember that. Like, we're still, in both senses, up and down. A win for Dunfermline on Friday really makes you sort of look at the table and you're panicking. And then on the other side, if results go away at the weekend, then we're looking completely opposite direction. Scott, just to turn our focus to our rivals along the road, just what have you made of Michael Tidzer's start? Obviously, he's come under quite a lot of criticism from Dunfermline fans, and the sort of the passing-based sort of style that they've had. They beat us quite convincingly at East End Park, shall we say. But then a real mixed bag in terms of the results, beating Morton at home with 10 men, but then you look at other games like losing away to Hamilton or Airdrie. What have you made of the start that he's made so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite entertaining viewing, I would say, on the socials of Dunfermline after every game, because they really are not in favour of Tidser at all, going by...
You're being very polite, Scott, not in favour.
Aye, there's been a lot said, and it's not been positive, going by their fans. And I've got a good mate of mine that's a Pars fan, and he's been slightly less critical about him, but at the same time, his worry is that Tidser's trying to change the way that this team play in a time in the season where you're just needing points. In the position they're in, they just need to get points. Just like anybody in the bottom of the league right now, it doesn't matter how you get the points, you need to get the points. So whether that's just getting a goal early on and just holding on to that, if that's what you've got to do, you've got to do it. I don't know if that's how Tizzer's trying to go about it at all. He's only won 2 league games since he's came in. His other one was against Steny in the Cup. But yeah, I think and one of them wins was against us, but at the same time, I keep looking back at that last game. They got 2 penalty kicks and a massive deflection. Like, it was not a 3-1 game by any stretch of the manner, and even at that, I don't think we did enough wrong to lose the game, really. But I do think that we've been pretty good at home this season, for the most part anyway, and they have not been very good away from home. So I hope that sort of run continues. I just think, as I say, I don't think that the Dunfermline fans are really having him yet, which is quite funny because they've got him on is it a 3-year deal we've got Tidser on? So it's something like that.
Shrug my shoulders.
And already there's a lot of them saying that he's no cut out for the job, and you're like, well, I hope they've got deep pockets, this new lot, because that's 3 years on a contract they're already going to have to pay out if that's the way that it's going. But yeah, I think he needs to probably start thinking about changing the way that they play to get points, rather than, I play this style and this is how we're going to play. Because if that's the case, I think they could be falling into the relegation playoffs, or worse, if Airdrie continue their good run.
Yeah, it's. I think it's one of those ones where you can also look at the fact that they had a caretaker that, I mean, seemingly his record, the caretaker, now affectionately known by their fan base as Lanzarote John, has basically, Carol, you're looking a bit confused, so I'll give you the backstory about
I don't know
this.
if I want to ask.
So
sometimes you just don't want to ask, do you? So is this one of the times when I do want to ask or not?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
To be fair, it's a good bit patter.
It's not bad.
Yeah,
Right.
effectively their caretaker manager at that point was meant to go away on a holiday to Lanzarote, but he kept having to postpone his holiday because they were having such an effort getting Michael Tidser in that he had to keep postponing it down the line. So hence he's become christened as Lanzarote John. But he, in particular, they had a game away at Firhill where they absolutely battered them 4-1. Now, he seemed to sort of just get them going for the jugular, whereas Michael Tidser seems to be a bit more measured in terms of the way that he sets up his teams and being able to go forward with that. Going into this game, when you look at the forms of the team, Rovers have, in their last 5, won 2, lost 2, but drawn 1, but then they've had no goals in their last 3, whereas Dunfermline have won that one game against Morton. They've lost twice, but then they've had 2 draws as well, and I don't think outside the Morton game that they've scored. So, Carol, do all signs lead this to being a very tight and potentially tepid affair, do you think, between the sides?
It's pointing towards a scrappy 0-0 draw, isn't it? No, I think it's a win-win for both teams because it's a cliche 6-pointer for both. If we lose it, we are looking down. If they lose it, they are looking at Airdrie being right behind them. So hopefully, for entertainment value, they come out all guns blazing.
Yeah, it's a really hard one to get the measure of, particularly because, it's with the way that they play. They're going to be encouraged by the surface, particularly that we've got, in the sense that you can play passing football. We've water the pitch before. It's something that we've done before, quite regularly, common to see. It's not like one of these Airdrie in particular is one that jumps out for me. It's been really bad where the pitch seems just almost quite sticky, like the ball will hold up and they don't tend to sort of water it before the games or anything like that, whereas Rovers, you do see sprinklers on and they want to try and encourage that. So whether that sort of allows them to play that game, which might be beneficial for us, or whether he does just completely change it up, it's impossible to tell where we're at. Yeah, Allan, just a lot's been made about Dunfermline's business, obviously. They did have a very, very busy January transfer window. I think the sort of exceptional signings that they've had so far that have jumped out have been Jeremiah Chilikoa Mullen has came in from Leeds, I believe it is, on loan, and Archie Stevens as well from Rangers. They obviously spent some money on the player that Scott was after, Connor Young. What have you made about their sort of business and the direction that they're sort of taking? Do you think in the situation that they're in, they've obviously brought in a lot of young players to supplement their squad? And now, again, this might be tempting fate, but do you think that's a potential dangerous game in their position where maybe these players are coming in? You've got some lads that, I think a couple of lads that came up from Bristol hadn't really had any senior experience, maybe played 23s league, and then they get chucked into a league where they're potentially playing against players that are fighting for contracts, fighting for paying mortgages, rent, etc. Going ahead.
They seem to be placing a lot of faith in kind of computer programs and stats and all this kind of stuff to go out and pick their players and say, this guy, it's almost like, playing Football Manager and ignoring the scouting reports and just going on the stats, that kind of thing.
Well, asking ChatGPT who should be signed.
Yeah, to me, the best way to see if a player's the right player for you, the best tool you still have is your eyes. Go and, watch the guy, watch him playing in the youth game, or send someone else to do it and get reports on them. I've not seen much of these guys, but going by a lot of the comments on Pie and Bovril and on Twitter and stuff, there's a lot of comments about these guys just not being up to playing at this level. Both, I'm sure they've got the skills in there, but we've seen an awful lot of young players come up from England with plenty of skill, and it's just no use when you're playing in Scottish Championship football, which is, as physical and kind of fast a game as you'll find. They're just not ready for it. And you can get away with it, I think, if you've got one or two where decent, kind of smart enough, kind of good, experienced players. But I think maybe they're just trying to throw too many of them in. I'm going on kind of online comments, which are not always the best barometer for these kind of things. But that seems to be where their issues lie. And not only that, they're throwing an awful lot of new bodies in there. It's difficult to kind of get a squad of players together when they've got a full pre-season together. But to try and do it when you're in the middle of a relegation battle just seems a bold move. A big gamble, shall we say.
Yeah, it's, again, it comes back to, you obviously get your data, and I'm sure that they do consider other factors, but a lot of the lads are moving up to Scotland for the first time into a professional league setup, and again, nobody can really judge as to how a player will handle being in that sort of type of environment, whether like moving away from home. Some players might not relish that, being away from their friends and family, or sort of creature comforts that they might have back wherever they're based regularly. So yeah, it's a tough one, but then as well at the same time, I do think that they've got plenty of experience within that squad to still shore things up at the same time in theory. So it all really comes down to the manager, and I think being able to sort of, whether he chooses to utilise that. You look at a player like David Witherspoon in terms of the experience and he's had in his career. Even the guys like Ewan Otto, for example, always seems to stand out for Dunfermline and derbies. So as to the degree that really sort of fulfills in this game, very hard to say, because again, I'm sure that Rovers fans felt confident going into the last derby, where we'd sort of changed our form a wee bit, and then it ended up the way that it did. So, yeah, I feel like... And again, going back to what you said earlier, Carol, I think that's probably where it comes back to this sort of like last year we did have, to quote Blair, the pizzazz, the bravado that came with us. We'd sort of puff out our chests and be like, we're going to East End Park and we're going to win because we're Rafe Rovers and... you're on for the roller coaster, etc. Whereas now it just feels a bit more measured response. And again, obviously, teams are giving it back to us with that.
There's always that thing as well, actually. The game you touched on earlier, with Ian's video, the Thistle game, one of many examples last season where we didn't really play that well, but we still managed to dig out a result. We just don't seem to have that in us this season. If we're not playing well, we're not winning.
Yeah,
It's just not happening.
I mean, but also at the same token, you look at some of the performances, like the Thistle game at home. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking more in terms of Partick Thistle at home earlier this season, where the game that we basically scudded them, and I know that they had their injury issues, but I don't think we ever had a performance like that last season, where we just showed up in the league, and it feels like the bar can be a lot higher, but less frequently. But then also as well, we've spoken at great length about sort of the potential low side.
Yeah.
Scott, just in terms of yourself, obviously Partick and Morton, I know that we spoke about Partick a bit earlier with them winning 2-0 at Hampden last night, and then Morton as well won 2-1 against Ayr at home last weekend. Where do you think that leaves us? I know that I sort of asked Allan the question about, is this really a last chance saloon for us? Where do you think that leaves us just going forward? Do you think is it maybe a bit naive to be looking at other results, whereas we really just need to be focusing on ourselves at the moment?
I mean, I think you always have to be looking at yourself first, because that's who we can affect more than anything. We can't tell other teams to go and win games or lose games, because it's just not how football works. But yeah, I think it's going to be like a bit of a cliche, but I think it's just 9 cup finals for us now to the end of the season. It's literally, if we really believe that we can get 4th place, then yeah, we need to be winning on Friday for a start, and then go and beat Partick next Friday, because I think if we go and get 6 points of these next 2 games, I think Partick will really start to worry about what. The other question is, are they just going to decide to go with Brian Graham at the end of the season as well? I know we're on about Dunfermline first, but I think if we were to win, I think they've got Ayr this weekend. So
I mean,
Ayr are going for the title. Like, I would like to think Ayr will beat them, and if we win straight away, it's back to 4 points. And again, we've still got a game in hand on them. So yeah, I don't think every game right now is a cup final for us if we are trying to get this playoff spot. But again, if for some reason we don't turn up Friday and we do get beat, or even a draw, you're still looking over your shoulder at the likes of Hamilton and Dunfermline. I think Airdrie are probably a bit too far for us, I would think, with 9 games to go.
Yeah.
But I still think that Dunfermline and Hamilton aren't too far behind to be thinking that we're well clear of them yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone. I've said it before, but I feel like leaving that Hamilton Accies game at home, I was thinking, right, we've got a good distance between ahead of us or behind us now, compared to those the likes of Dunfermline and Accies, and it should put like should calm any fears and allay any sort of doubts that we had. And then within a week, that was gone, and it's just like, oh my god, it's just very, very tough one. Right, what we're going to do is we will take a very quick break. So we will be back after that to look at things from the Rovers' perspective and have a bit of chat about the news about Starks Park and just look at the move a bit forward.
Blair.
Yes, mate.
You're a man,
Yes.
and you have thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Yes.
Are you good at talking about all that stuff?
Well, I try my best, but I don't know. Probably not as much as I should.
I'm the same. I feel better after getting stuff like that off my chest, but I don't do it anywhere near often enough. Have you heard about Andy's Man Club?
They're brilliant. They create a safe space for men to sit down and talk about the important stuff. And they do it right across the country as well.
Yeah, exactly. They've got more than 200 meetings across the UK, and it's every Monday night at 7 o'clock, including one at Starks Park.
And if anyone wants more information on it, they can go to andysmanclub.co.uk or search for Andy's Man Club on Facebook. It's okay to talk, and now we're going to get back to talking about the Rovers.
Right, okay. So welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where, a bit of a Rovers perspective on the game this Friday against Dunfermline. Carol, we did get a bit of squad news that Scott Brown, unfortunately, away for a scan in terms of calves after that, came off against Livingston. what have you made about that news? Do you think it's sort of sounds like it's going to be a bit touch and go going into Friday, and whether that's potentially going to have a longer term impact? What are your thoughts about that?
The positive person in me is it's a couple of games out and he just needs a bit of rest. The pessimist in me is that I don't think we're going to see him again this season. I hope not. I hope it is just a little twinge. But this is a repeated thing that really does need to get sorted, or we're going to break him. And if, or when, let's be positive, when we get into the playoffs, we'll need him.
Yeah, I mean, he was such a key figure last season in the games against Thistle. Particularly that first game at Firhill, where, again, he got on the score sheet there. But I think it relates back to sort of the issues that Ross Matthews had earlier. Again, it's different player, different sort of situation, but spent so long.
It's the captain again, and I think that's the key part, is that they're co-captains, and if one's down, the other one's down, and we never seem to have both of them together, and it does make a difference, I think, communication-wise, and keeping the players' heads up when they're both fit.
Yeah, I mean, I would measure that by saying that we've got, ours is probably the opposite of the Dunfermline squad, in the sense that we've got so many players with so much experience in there that you would hope that, again, the likes of Paul Hanlon, Lewis Stevenson, will sort of have that natural, like, not necessarily being like shouters and ballers and the teacups flying about dressing rooms, but you would still hope that there's the sort of guidance and the experience there to sort of see us through. My point about Ross Matthews was that sort of had that recurring injury, and it wasn't until we took the full time to basically rehab him, get him through, make sure that he was getting the proper treatment in terms of the support and taking the time. And it took him so long to get back in, but it had to be done right because it was just recurring time and time again. I mean, a potential replacement for Scott Brown there, Scott, would be Sean Byrne. Him coming in from the start, do you think that's maybe going to be a bit too much to ask, or would that be something that you would be sort of looking for entertaining, him and potentially Ross Matthews coming in and as a sort of tandem?
It's a difficult one because obviously we went away to Livy and he didn't come on the park, and especially when Bruni went down injured, you thought, oh well, Sean Byrne's going to come on, and then it was like, oh no, it's Josh Mullen coming on, so you'd imagine then Doherty moves into the middle, which he did, and he played fine. But yeah, I wonder if that's the way that Robson's just going to go. If he still thinks that Byrne's not really up to full fitness yet, because I mean, Byrne's only played one appearance since he's came back off the bench, so he's still been back in training at least for a couple of weeks. So you would like to think that he's almost there, but whether he can give you a full 90 or even close to that, I don't know. But I would, from the start, I would like to see him in there from the start. More just for the fact that I always like it when he's in there with Bruni, because Bruni's the sort of all-action player, and he's the one that's the sort of calm head, sits in front of the back line, puts his foot in the ball, and controls the sort of game at the speed that we want to play it or whatever. Whereas you've got Matthews and Bruni, and I just keep going back to the fact that they two are very similar in terms of they both just want to be all action, box the box, get involved with everything, whereas you kind of need somebody to just sit in there and protect or help, and if somebody's out of position, he'll go and fill in, that sort of guy, which Sean Byrne seems to do really well when he's playing well. So I think also in a derby, which could be quite cagey this week, we've just talked about how teams are struggling to score and teams are also not conceding so many goals or whatever. So I do think you're going to need these experienced guys to help us through this sort of potential cagey affair.
Yeah, I mean, I'd not really actually fought back too much about Doherty slotting into the middle of the park. I just kind of automatically defaulted into Sean Byrne going straight in, which, to be fair, it's a credit to Sean Byrne that he's just naturalised that that's the type of experience that you want to see in. I mean, even you think back to the derbies of last season, and Sean Byrne was such a key influence for us, particularly that first game at East End Park that we played in the league. I remember him having one of those games where it was just there was little things that he would do. For instance, one of their players, I think there was something like an injury, and he just was over, just causing a wee bit of havoc, just having a wee chat. And even the earlier on this season, where there was, I think it was, might have been Chris Hamilton or Matty Todd or someone like that, where Easton got halved off the ball, and then they're all having a bit of argy-bargy, and then you just see Sean Byrne wade in and just like push the guy back, and he's just like, right, you just can't.
Oh, that was the home game in December.
Yeah. Just little bits like that. It's easy to forget that he's got that experience and that bit of nous about him to be able to do that. The other player that I think that there's probably been quite a vocal sort of, shall we say, clamouring for to start is, of course, Lewis Vaughan, Allan. I mean, do you think that's the natural change going into this one? If you're looking for goals, who better to pick than the record goal scorer in Fife derbies?
Yeah, I mean, again, it all very much comes down to how fit he is. If he is 100% raring to go, absolutely no fitness issues, he's probably our best player. You start him. Simple as that. He's certainly our biggest goal threat. If other than maybe, Easton winning and scoring a penalty, Lewis Vaughan is our best. We are more likely to score with him on the pitch. I don't think there's any doubt about that. If he's not 100%, I think he's too important to the rest of the season to risk him from the start, but you want him having a good half hour at least. I'm fairly hopeful that, it's been by the time we play the game, it'll be 9 days since the Livingston game. He obviously got a bit of a time on there. Looked okay, but it's kind of hard to tell. With 9 more days of training under his belt, I'd like to think he might be match fit. The big question then becomes, who drops out?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm glad it's not me making the choice. I'll have to make a choice when you come back and ask for a lineup. But
I'll tell you straight away that my heartstrings immediately go to the classic Vaughan Gullen duo up top.
Especially against Dunfermline, you start thinking 5-1 COVID season. Yeah, absolutely.
Back in 2021, that 5-1 game, and just having those two up top just running riot. Admittedly, with the midfield behind would be a bit different, but then Dylan Easton's still got that capability where he can step up to the mark. So I mean, even we've seen Vaughan sort of coming in from out wide before. You know that Gullen can do it, and you could play Easton as that sort of false nine. So
the interesting thing's going to be if Easton does, or someone else win a penalty, who's taking it? Does Vaughan pull rank, or does Easton say, nah, mate, I'm on them this year? I think you've probably got to stick with Easton because he's been scoring them, but again, it's Lee Vaughan.
Who would deny him? He's, certainly.
Say something about how many penalties we've had this season that we actually have this converse. Like, you're going into this thinking, there's a decent chance we're going to get a penalty in this game.
I think, I'm trying to remember, was it the season that we first spent down in League One? I might be wrong about this, but I'm sure there was one of the seasons that we were down in League One where we just never had a penalty. Like, for a full season, we did not have a penalty. And yet this season, it's been the complete opposite. But again, if you're the type of team where you can get into the opposition box, I know that we're sort of probably one of the lower teams in terms of creating like goal scoring opportunities and clear cut ones, but then we get the ball into the box, and when you've got players like Dylan Easton, they can create absolute havoc for defenders, just causing issues there. And to take a bit of a different tack with the next question, Carol, how important do you think fan influence can be going into this one? Just again, with the way that the season's panned out, had some high moments in there. And then we saw the game against Queen's Park last time out where it was very much the opposite, where obviously a lot of people leaving early, feeling a bit underwhelmed. So how important do you think it will be that, again, firstly, the fans, they've got something to get them on their feet, and then secondly as well, the fans being able to support players?
I think every one of the players that play on Friday night, if they win and they score a goal, they'll be a legend and the fans will love them. But if they lose, those fans are going to turn quick. The patience is not there anymore. And that's all I ask. If anyone's listening, just be patient. Just if Vaughan doesn't start and he's on the bench and we go one down, we've got that in our back pocket. It's just be patient, get behind the team, be that 12th man. We can be loud.
I'd love that to be the case, but my feeling is if we go 1-0 down, we'll certainly be loud, but it won't be positive.
No, and that's my fear as well. And that's not going to help, because that's
absolutely not
one of our team's issues this year is heads going down, and if you hear that, there's nothing you can do.
I feel like if there's going to be one person that will be patient out there and probably not make changes at the moment, it's going to be Barry Robson, because I think that's probably the one criticism that people have sort of levelled at him, which I would, to be fair, I would say it's fair enough. I feel like he's had the options there on the bench, and then at points you're just looking towards, like, when you're giving some players like 10, 15 minutes at the end of a game, like, give them a chance to get into it. Half an hour to go and get the subs going. Like, but again, different managers have got different styles, and that's just seemingly the way that he's at, and maybe quite stubborn with it. Scott, just to come back to you, what do you think Rovers need to do to sort of change to be a bit more effective up top? Do you think, I mean, maybe for instance, Dylan Easton potentially switching to more of a wider role? Is it formational? Do you think that it's something that we should be sort of looking to make sweeping changes for, or do you think it's maybe just more about sticking with where we're at and just it'll come good? It's just more that we've just not had breaks in the last few games.
I would actually like us to kind of go a different, especially for this game against the Pars, where they play pretty much close to what we've been playing recently in terms of formation, but I would prefer that we actually went to like a back four for this game and actually try and get more players in the final third, so you can get like if he's playing a Vaughan, a Gullen, a Pollock, even Easton, all these guys getting in and around the box, creating chances. Because, I mean, Dunfermline have been keeping clean sheets and not conceding too many goals, but at the same time, we know what Kyle Benedictus can do and what he can't do. Like, it's not like he's one of the best centre halves going. Like, he's now an aging centre half in the Championship who can be quite rash at times but he can also have really good games as well. But I do think he's somebody that we can get at. And I mean, they've also got young lads back there. I know that the boy Mullen's been playing well for them, but at the same time, he's a young lad that, you never know. It's a Friday night game in front of the TV cameras. If he makes a mistake early on, is it something that hangs with him for the full game and then you can get at him? Mm-hmm. Just these sort of things that you need to be constantly asking questions. And I think if you can keep getting attacking-minded players as far forward up the pitch with us in possession, you're going to ask enough questions that I think you'll get at least a goal out of it. But at the same time, we've been saying that we've been creating chances, or at least looking like we might score, and we've not scored in the last 3 games. So you've got to look at it that way as well. But as I say, I would change the formation for this game specifically. You can maybe go back to the back 3 for other games, but I think for this game I would change it up.
Scott, that sounds like a segue. What would be your lineup to go with?
Well, as I say, this is the people that are in my team. This is definitely the team that I would go with. This is nowhere near what I think Barry Robson's going to go with.
Yeah, that's very true.
But I would actually go with a 4-4-2 for this game, and it would be obviously Josh Ray in goals, as it has been recently. I would have Doherty at right back with Hanlon and Dick at centre half. Lewis Stevenson back in a sort of traditional left-back position. And then my first curveball is that because we chucked him back in for this game back in December and he played a blinder, is and I know he's not really played under Barry Robson, but I just love Aidan Connolly's work rate. I don't think that he's ever let us down, really, when he's ever played for us. And he's somebody that gives you constantly 100%. And he just looks knackered constantly when he's playing, but yet at the same time, he never gives up. And we always know what he can do cutting in from that right hand side with his left foot as well. He can usually trouble a few keepers with that sort of curling effort into the far corner. But I would bring him back in for this game because he's played in plenty of these derby games and he knows what it means, obviously, to us, but also just the occasion. So I would go with him, and then I would have Matthews and Byrne in the middle of the park, purely because obviously we don't think that Bruni's going to be here for it. The fact that he's gone for a scan, and we just hope that he's back sooner rather than later. I've got Easton out on the left. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing him back out wide. I think he's fine as a 10, but I do think he's better coming in off that left-hand side and running at his fullbacks. And then up front, I've gone with, we've already mentioned the old duo of Lewis Vaughan and Jamie Gullen. Now, which sounds ridiculous considering he's just been given an under-21 call-up that you're dropping Finlay Pollock. But at the same time, Finlay Pollock is not being quite as clinical as he probably should have been. And this is a game that we're going to have to be clinical, I think. I just think the fact that we've not scored in the last 3 games, we need to be taking chances. And who better than somebody like Lewis Vaughan who knows how to score a goal in a 5 derby?
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, you've summed it up nicely, and that's a perfect ending for me to have Gullen and Vaughan potentially starting up top. Again, I feel like with Pollock that he's still got the opportunity to be able to come in and do some damage, and we know that he can get on the score sheet. Maybe it's a time where he would benefit by coming off the bench and being fresh towards the end of a game.
And his pace against Benedictus in the 70th minute.
Aye, exactly. Me and you should just apply for a co-manager's job next time up, Scott. We'll be absolutely fine. We'll smash it. Allan, who have you got in your lineup?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with more of what I think Barry Robson might do. I would like to see him move away from the 5-3-2 just because guaranteed Dunfermline have been training all week, assuming we are going to play that. So why not just throw them a curveball and chuck a completely mad lineup in there? Kind of like we did when we pumped them in the Scottish Cup last year, albeit that was largely driven by having nobody available. I mean, I think I was only 1 or 2 away from having to get my boots on. But I think he will stick with the 5-3-2 because he seems pretty much kind of set on that. I think Josh Rail playing goals, I think he has to be given as many chances as Kev was. And, he had a decent game at Livingston. The good could come back after the debacle against Queen's Park, albeit, wasn't necessarily his fault anyway. I think he'll stick pretty much with the same defence he went with to start with against Livingston. So I think we're looking at Hanlon in the defence with Murray, and I think he'll probably have Dick in there. I think Doherty will stick it right back, kind of right wing back, because I think the Dunfermline have tried targeting us there in the past in terms of long diagonal balls up to what's his name out in the left wing. His name escapes me. McCann, that's it. And I think if we go with Mullen out there, I think we'll probably struggle. I think you need someone a bit more defensively minded there, albeit you maybe pay for it in attack. And I think we'll persist with Stevenson as a wing back. I'm confident. I'm going with the assumption that Byrne's going to be fit, so I'll have Byrne and Matthews in the base, Dylan Easton in the midfield as well, and then I'm also going to go with Vaughan and Gullen up front for much the same reasons that Scott said, but also I think we're going to have to do without Pollock for the next couple of games after that, so probably worthwhile giving another combination a bit of a go. And also, as you said, Pollock is a great option to have coming off the bench. I mean, if Vaughan starts, I don't see him playing much more than an hour, if at all. For his first start back, give Pollock half an hour running at a tired Dunfermline defence. I think he could get some joy out of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Barry Robson, it's one where you can look at Pollock and you can sort of say, like, with it, you could say, okay, well, we've got these games coming up, so we're going to play Friday, and then is it a Tuesday, and then a Friday again.
Yeah.
So is it the time now to basically get
Oh, no, it's
used?
Friday,
we're
Tuesday,
not playing
Saturday.
next
Right,
midweek.
aye.
We've got a week.
So you're wondering, is it a case where maybe he tries to get that in now, or does he stick with Pollock just on the basis we're not going to have you, but we can use the other players and keep them fresher for when we do need them? So yeah, hard
Yeah,
one.
that's the kind of flip side of it, really. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Vaughan's going to play a lot of football while Pollock's away, so maybe you don't start him in this one. But
It's Lewis Vaughan, though.
Knowing Barry
Lewis
Robson, he
Vaughan.
probably will go with Pollock because that's it seems to be the guy that he wants to be up there doing the sort of pressing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily Vaughan's strongest part of his game, but at the same time, Finlay Pollock can't finish the same as Louis Vaughan. So
Yeah,
you've
not many in this league,
depends
can
what
there?
you want in a forward, really.
yeah. And Carol, for you, just your lineup.
Well, it was when Scott started, I completely changed. So I'm going with my and on the back of your question, what about the fans? Dream team. To get it right up them. Kevin goal. I know not Kevin goal, but Kevin goal because just Kev noises them up. Stevenson Hanlon for Dice at the back. Connolly, I'm going to pick up on Scott because he noises them up. I basically just want a team that noise them up. Everyone that's peed them off in the past, let's just put them on the pitch. If I was in charge, I would go for the mental head games and just getting about them. Finish with Gullen and Vaughan up top. Byrne and Matthews in the middle, Easton out the wing.
I feel it might be a bit of a lopsided, but I am absolutely here for the wind-upness of it all, Carol, should it come to pass.
just get Kev to be one of the ball boys right in front of the north stand. I think you can probably wind them up from there.
I mean, just switch ends for team players warming up, that'll be it. But yeah, I mean, for me, I suspect that Barry Robson will stick with the same formation. I don't think there would actually be too many changes. The changes that I would want to see would be Vaughan coming in for Pollock, and then to see Sean Byrne coming in for Josh Mullen, and just sort of you would just jig that about in the basis of like positionally making it make sense. And we all know how that should be the case with Rovers in terms of who's going where in their positions. So obviously Doherty would maybe move out to more of a wide position. I'm keen to see as well whether he actually changes the back line. It kept a clean sheet against Livingston, but whether it's one that he'll feel maybe he wants a back line that'll be a bit more aggressive and coming out or a bit more pace, given the sort of style that Dunfermline play. And again, I think that with the way that they're set up and everything that you hear about their side, whether we can put them under pressure with a high press, it wouldn't surprise me if we're keeping Pollock in right from the start. Just the way that it is, and just basically said him, Easton and Gullen out to try and charge them down at every opportunity and create a bit of chaos. Which, to be fair, not going to be completely against, but yeah, I think that the main thing is that we need to have an improved scoring. We've got in fairness, at Starks Park, over the last decade, we've got a ridiculously decent, ridiculously good record against Dunfermline. I was reading on Pie and Bovril, one of their fans saying that aside from their one victory, which I think was the second in the Gary Locke era derbies, was the floodlights failing when Peter Grant was in charge. That was the second best result for them. But yeah, it's it's a derby. It's cliched to say, but anything can happen. And I think the main thing is that if we can play to our full ability, that we can go out and win the game, as we've seen earlier on this season. But it's about making sure that we don't hit the lows that we know that Rovers side can do. So yeah, we will move on to a game of Should McStay or Should Dargo, which Carol has delightfully prepared for us this evening. However, just before we do that, just a little reminder, Blair sent out the tweet/email earlier on about the prediction league, so make sure you get your predictions in if you are involved with that. And yeah, I believe it's our game and the Morton game, I think it is this weekend, I believe. So yes, as we watch out that epic battle between Duncan's dad and Blair, and Leslie as well, I think, is involved at the top of the league. Sorry to anyone else that's lurking on the fringes. So yeah, Carol, you've got a game of Should McStay or Should Dargo prepared for us. So is it 6 or 7 questions that you've got?
I've got 7 questions.
7 questions about a past or present Rovers player, and we are to try and guess them. So let's see how quickly this descends into a team effort.
Okay. Question number 1. One of this player's previous teams has won a Copa del Rey.
I automatically, because of your background, I'm now going through a list of Spanish players. However, I'm going to go with a bit of a curveball on the first one, and go with Ryan Nolan.
That's what I was just thinking about
But
going.
you didn't say it, Scott.
But then I was just sitting going, surely Hercules haven't won the Copa del Rey.
But
Like,
I mean, was
I
it?
know they were in like the second. I don't remember that. Were they ever in La Liga?
I'm suspecting it might be an earlier team than Hercules because he was with Inter, and then I think he went back to Spain. Albeit, actually, Motherwell.
I'll go Josh Ray.
What former Motherwell players have we got? Because they've won the Copa del Rey.
Yeah. I see that came up recently about teams winning other cups in like other teams' countries and stuff like that.
I'm just going to pick a random Spanish player for the hell of it. Nacho Novo.
Random enough. I have played abroad. According to Google, where I played is 14,638 kilometres from Kirkcaldy.
I don't like the fact you've gone full Leslie with this, Carol. I thought you were better than that. It's different when the boot's on the other foot, when you're not like toiling about for guesses. I'm sticking with Ryan.
I'm loving I can remember my own name. Okay, this is my debut. I am taking you all down.
I'm going to stick with Ryan Nolan. Just
okay.
Because...
Yeah, I've not really got any reason to change. I've done the maths and tried to change that into miles in my head. Hasn't really helped.
Well, I don't think it is Josh Ray. I just threw that in because I knew he trained with Atletico Madrid at one point. But I don't know who to go with. Paquito.
Okay. One of the teams I have played for has a stag on their badge.
Spanish Ross County players.
Maybe Martin Prest? Can't think of Ryan Nolan with any stags on a crest, unless Northampton Town have.
Are they no nicknames something about like shoes or something?
The Cobblers.
The Cobblers.
Yeah. I don't have a further guess on that.
Yeah, I've got nothing with that.
Okay. I have made 1 appearance for Scotland under 18s, according to Wikipedia.
Not Paquito.
No Martin Prest.
Pretty certain it's no Nacho Novo either.
They made 1 appearance.
This is according to. I'm kind of caveat with according to Wikipedia. Yes.
For Scotland under 18s.
Yes.
It's just so funny when you end up thinking of non-Rovers players and you have to stop yourself saying anything. I was like, Jack Harper. And then I was like, actually not.
Okay.
Right.
This has turned into a team effort.
Correct.
Played for a club that's won the Copa del Rey. And made an appearance at us.
See, I'm thinking of like Motherwell players now. I can't even really think of many Motherwell players that played for Rovers at the time. Stevie Kirk would have been one, eh?
Miodrag Kravokapic.
Definitely no playing for Scotland under 18s.
No, fairly certainly didn't, no.
Mind you, the boy at Hibs, Molotnikov, does.
Kravokapic was... Did he even go back to Russia or something like that? I can't remember what team he played for. But,
Do you want the next clue?
Carol's itching at how much pain we're in right now. She's just...
John
it's
Sutton's
quite hard
played
to
for both, but it's
watch.
not him either. So
Aye.
I don't know. I just feel like getting an appearance for like the under like any of the sort of age groups before 21s, it's quite common for a lot of guys that are playing like a decent level basically at a young age to be just thrown into like an under 17s and under 18s sort of squad. But there's probably quite a few of the Rovers players over the years have been in youth Scotland squads.
Aye.
How many of them have played 14,000 kilometres away from Kirkcaldy as well is another question, though.
You're not going to forgive me for that clue, are you, Scott? No.
No.
Clue number 5. Unfortunately, between spells at Wraith, I signed for Dunfermline.
Right.
okay, so played for us more than once.
And played for the Pars.
Pat Clark was recently, but I don't remember him playing that far away.
He came to us from Dunfermline, didn't he? And then went back, and then came back.
He bounced around
Something.
everywhere in Fife.
I'm... Ewan Murray might be a suggestion there. Albeit Scotland under 18s. I don't think he'll have played for Scotland under 18s. I'm pretty sure Ewan Murray was at Motherwell. He played for us and he's played for Dunfermline. The Stag, I don't think he's played for Ross County though. But
I think it is Ewan Murray. Hartlepool have got a Stag.
do they?
I'm certain they do.
Right.
And I think you're right about it if it's Motherwell
And,
for the Copa
I
del
mean,
Rey.
the distance, 14,000's like, it's going to be when he played for one of the one of the nations that was in the, because there's that thing where he played in the Asian Champions League or the Oceanic Champions League because he was playing in some place that's like, I don't know, Fiji or near Tahiti or something like that. Sorry.
I don't even remember Ewan Murray playing it
If
for
our
abroad.
Spotify stats pop up with this nation, I'm going to be truly, truly sorry to anyone that's offended by that. But I don't know where he played, but Micronesia.
I didn't even know that he
like
played abroad.
Yeah, he
Ewan
did.
Murray.
Yeah, he went across and he played somewhere else. I mean, it might not be Ewan Murray.
We are just assuming already that it is, but
we're
I
very
do
bad
think
for that, lads.
Would you like to be put out
I
your
think
misery?
Hartlepool
I would
will
like-
have a Stag.
I feel like because you're saying put out your misery, that you're sort of alluding to it. But I would like to hear clue 6 and 7.
106 appearances for Rovers.
I mean, that
Sounds about right.
Sound about right.
And I have a solid head on my shoulders, and I have the reputation for taking it in the dish.
Yeah.
Well done.
Good shout.
So I was, Motherwell did not win the Copa del Rey.
Copa
They
del Oro.
won a Copa del Rey. Okay. In 1927, where they played Real Madrid, but it was a mix of other teams, players from around Spain, because the King was so determined to beat Motherwell, but unfortunately 4-3 on penalties.
What was it?
They then went and played Barcelona in a special cup and won that cup. So there's actually 2 Spanish cups in Motherwell's trophy room.
Yeah.
Ewan Murray played for Western United in the Solomon Islands, which takes you
course he did.
1 day and 47 hours to get there. Okay, I could have given you that clue, but so it is 14,638 kilometres from Kirkcaldy. Hartlepool have the Stag on their badge. He made 1 appearance for the under-18s versus Serbia, and yep, that's it.
Aye, that was excellent. But I'm really, really annoyed at you for that clue. Yeah, I would like to issue a formal apology to the Solomonians, I don't know. Right.
The islands.
Aye. The good people of the Solomon Islands.
I've got a confession
You
to
never
make.
know. You never know. We might have one listener out there
Yeah.
now that has been mentioned.
I heard the Copa del Rey fact a couple of weeks ago, and I have been back thinking I have to get this in somehow. I need to find a player that's connected to Motherwell and weird clues.
It was also a couple of weeks ago that I came across it. It was a page on Twitter had put, like, as I said earlier, it was like, name a club from your country that's won another trophy in another country, basically. And Motherwell was one of the ones that kept coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's football trivia is great like that from time to time. It's when you get the daft facts that come up. I know the Should McStay or Should Dargo that we did last week, where I was listing off the players that had obviously been played with, and I was looking back at the Ider Johnson players played with, because that sort of came up about like who he'd played alongside, like Ronaldinho, Brazilian Ronaldo, Messi, and then you go into like Chelsea, and I think he had a spell at Stoke, so it was like Michael Owen and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and just some ridiculous players that he's been alongside. Anyway, that will round us off for this evening. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen. We will, of course, be back post-Derby, hopefully celebrating a win. Not had enough of those compared to last season in post-Derby podcasts. But yeah, we will be back regardless of the result, no doubt. And yes, thank you for taking the time to listen, and bye for now.